What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Scyushi, and yes, that's right, we are back again for some more Genshin Impact. Today we're going to be highlighting Kokomi, who is going to end up being a new 5-star character coming in version 2.1. Now, a lot of her materials are going to end up being related to new bosses and new areas and so on and so forth, and we'll get into that in a moment while we end up, getting into all of her details about her skills and so on and so forth. But for those of you that are just here for the nitty-gritty, you know why you're here. You're basically here for this. This is the Ascension card. I'll have a link in the description for those of you that want to end up actually downloading this so that you can prepare for Kokomi. But unfortunately, as you can see, a lot of these materials are new materials where you will not be able to prepare for her. So these are going to end up being on the new island, which is actually going to end up being right over here in Inazuma, and is going to end up being, well, over in the distance. As far as I know, it lands over here. Maybe it was one of the error locations, but it doesn't matter. Either way, the new island is going to end up containing the Songo Pearl, which is her new fruit, as it were, which is probably going to end up being in the water, I would assume. Generally, they always do a really good job of having the new materials available on the official Genshin map, which is really, really cool. But you'll notice that she also takes a new boss material, which is going to be the Hydro Cube. So the Hydrostasis. Finally, we ended up getting a water version of the cube, and this guy looks... it looks difficult, dude, to say the least. I mean, at least I've got a few more characters that can end up reacting with Hydro, but if it's anything like the Pyro Cube was, then I'm worried. There's also going to end up being the new enemy drop, which is from... let me actually see what these enemies were. It says that it drops from specters, which naturally I would assume it's these creatures right here that were shown in Kokomi's trailer. I could be wrong about that, so, if I'm wrong, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that it is going to end up taking a new enemy material to get her Ascension materials and so on and so forth. And once again, a new weekly boss material, which is the material from Signora, which they ended up showing in the 2.1 stream, which, super excited about that boss fight. It's about time we fought another Fatui Harbinger. The only real things that you can technically prepare for Kokomi is the event crowns, and then Scrolls of Transience, which is Monday, Thursday, and Sunday within Inazuma. So with all of that said, let's talk about her elemental skill ability. So summons a Bake Kurage, I'm probably saying that wrong, but whatever, created from water that can heal her allies. Using this skill will apply the wet status to Kokomi. So it's like a 5-star version of Barbara, basically. But that's going to end up being this little thing right here floating around is basically going to be the thing that's, sitting on the side and healing. It also deals hydro damage to surrounding opponents and heals nearby active characters at fixed intervals. Now, the fact that it says active characters makes me curious whether or not it's not going to heal characters that you're not equipped to currently, like the ones that you're not playing as. So it means that she'll probably be more useful in co-op, where everyone's got all their party members out at all times, rather than if you're playing solo and have Kokomi out as the main. Or that could just end up being a mistranslation, and maybe she just has a heal that heals everybody. So anyways, this healing is based off of Kokomi's max HP. Kokomi needs timely refreshment in order to maintain optimal work efficiency. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's some lore thing, but the fact that it's scaled off of her max HP is pretty cool. And I mean, the fact that this little sucker is basically going to stay out as like... It's kind of like Oz for Fischl, right? So you'll be able to constantly tag enemies with Hydro, despite the fact that you're not going to have to actually use Kokomi to tag the enemies, which is pretty cool. Now, moving on to her elemental burst, this is where things get a little bit weird. So the Might of Watatsumi descends, dealing hydro damage to surrounding opponents before robbing Kokomi in a ceremonial garment made from the flowing waters of... Okay, whatever. So basically lore stuff. It makes her look cool during the duration of the ult, I suppose. But it basically deals a lot of hydro damage. And then the ceremonial garment itself is going to be kind of a passive buff that you'll get after the ult, which makes it so that Kokomi's normal charged attack and Bake Kurage damage are increased based on her max HP. Yeah, so that's already pretty crazy, the fact that she's got all of that going on. The Karage is going to end up being her E ability as well. So basically what you would want to do is use her ult and then use her skill so that you could have that little sucker out dealing additional damage based off of her HP, which is pretty crazy. When her normal and charged attacks hit opponents, Kokomi will restore HP to all nearby party members, and the amount restored is based on her maxed HP. What a crazy character, dude. And then it also will increase Kokomi's resistance to interruption and allows her to move on the water's surface. This effect will be cleared once Kokomi leaves the field. So basically, it's a greedy ult. And if you end up swapping off of her, it's going to go away. I don't know how long the ult lasts, but I'm sure that it's fairly short. The fact that she hovers on the water is pretty cool. And I ended up seeing a while ago people testing whether or not she could die from full damage while her ult was active, and the answer is yes, because it does actually make water act as a solid object, which is, I mean, that's really, really cool that we got a character that can fly over water. I mean, generally speaking, her animations are really, really dope, really, really cool and attractive looking, just for the fact that she flows around like a fish or a proper mage character. I don't know. Already, we're moving on to her passive talents, because thankfully this character is a lot more simple than somebody like Baal. Of course, we'll end up getting into builds a little bit later, but my point is Baal, it kind of seemed like it took a long time to get to this point. So Kokomi's passives are, her first passive is if Kokomi's own Karage are on the field when she uses her Ascension, which is her ultimate ability, the Karage's duration will actually be refreshed. So you would use her skill and then you would use her ult to refresh the duration, which I guess means that you wouldn't have to use your skill again after the ult. So basically, you would pop the little sucker out, swap to somebody else, deal damage for a little while, and then just before it goes away, you would end up swapping back to Kokomi and using her ult, I suppose. Her second passive is while donning the ceremonial garment from her ultimate ability. The normal and charged attack damage bonus Kokomi gains based on her HP will receive a further increase based on 15% of her healing bonus, meaning that this is actually a very weird character. Generally speaking, I would say that you're going to build her towards 100% HP, but it means that you might want to get healing bonus on one of her artifacts. I don't really know if that's going to end up scaling better than just having more HP, but time will tell. And then another passive ability of hers is decreases swimming stamina consumption for your own party members by 20%, not stackable with passives that provide the exact same effect. And then finally, Kokomi has a 25% healing bonus, but a 100% decrease in crit rate. So you might be wondering why she scales so well off of HP. It's because you are not going to be building her towards crit, like at all. So she's gonna be a very, very strange character to say the least. But anyways, let's move on to her constellations before we talk about possible builds with her. So her C1 makes it so that after you use your ult, the garment is going to end up having the final normal attack in Kokomi's combo will unleash a swimming fish that will deal 30% of her max HP as hydro damage. This damage is not considered normal attack damage, so it's actually just 30% of her normal attack damage, but it actually deals hydro. That's actually insane. I guess that means that it's going to end up working additionally to the 5th attack as well. So you'll do your 5th attack, but then a fish is going to show up that does damage as well, which is really interesting and shows how broken she is in terms of how powerful she is. Her C2 makes it so that Kokomi gains the following healing bonuses with regard to characters with 50% or less HP via the following message. Her E ability or her skill is going to have a 4.5% of Kokomi's max HP heal increase. And then the Nereid's Ascension normal and charged attacks will heal 0.6% of Kokomi's max HP as well. So basically her C2 makes her a much, much better healer. Not to say that she's not already going to end up being a really good healer. Her C3 obviously just, you know, ascends her one of her talents a little bit higher. And her C4 makes it while donning the ceremonial garment created by her ult. Kokomi's normal attack speed is increased by 10%, and normal attacks that hit opponents will restore 0.8 energy for her. Jesus. This effect can occur once every 0.2 seconds. So you'd basically just be spamming her attacks, and you would be getting more and more energy so that you could ultimately, well, spam your ultimate, your burst over and over again. Like that's actually a absolutely crazy constellation. Like this character is insanely cracked. Her C5, of course, just increases the talent level again, and then her C6 is again, well, donning the garment. Kokomi gains a 40% hydro damage bonus for 4 seconds after her normal and charged attacks heal a character that has 80% or more HP. Whew. I just can't get over how powerful this chick is going to end up being. Personally, I'm probably not going to end up going for Kokomi just because she's not my favorite stylistically as a character. But man alive, she sounds absolutely insane. And the fact that you, I kind of like the fact that she doesn't really get, like, that she's in the negatives with her crit. Because it means that all of those useless HP artifacts that you've been holding on to for all this time will end up being very, very useful on this character, right? So, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it seems like she's going to be a healer slash DPS, or a DPS healer, I guess. I don't know how greedy she's going to be, but yeah, it seems like she's going to end up being ultra powerful. The fact that she's a catalyst user does also mean that her normal attacks are always going to end up being hydro. So, you know, pick your poison. It means that you're not going to be doing that any physical damage, but I mean, whatever. It's not like you're going for this character for that in the first place. So obviously I don't end up having any stats set up for her properly, but let me just go through some artifacts real quick, and we'll take a peek and see what we can end up working out for her. So first of all, her weapon. As far as 5 stars are concerned, I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of them, except for any that involve crit rate you don't actually want. Don't ask why I have so many Skyward Atlas. The Dodoko one, maybe, I don't know. I mean, generally speaking, it's going to be all about either the attack percentage ones, or if there was one that would end up giving her, I don't know, maybe Elemental Mastery could end up scaling pretty well. Or you could be a freak and try to get as much crit damage as possible, and then just rely on that 1% crit rate so that you can end up getting a nice screenshot of high damage. Generally speaking, though, you know, you could end up using an HP one, I guess, but that involves only a 3-star, which might end up scaling pretty well. But generally speaking, I think that she's still going to end up scaling very well with attack percentage, so that's probably your best bet for a catalyst. That said, I don't really have that many catalysts as options, but I mean, it's not like you can really go wrong with any of them outside of, well, you can go wrong with quite a few of them, but it's pretty obvious with this character. So, of course, there's a couple options that you can end up doing. You could do a Hydro set, which means you're going to be grinding the Hydro domain. The Morning Dews moment, or whatever the heck this set is called. This is okay. It's not really going to end up being the best for her in slot, because this is more so about Yoimiya. But it is going to end up being a pretty cracked artifact set in general. You could go for Baal's artifact set, which is going to be the Severed Fate one, but that most of all is about energy recharge. That said, the 4-piece set could end up being pretty good just because of the fact that Kokomi seems like she scales most of all off of her burst. It seems like that's where a lot of your damage is going to end up coming from, which means that you could end up using a Noblesse set, just because that, you know, obviously ends up making it so that your ultimate ability is going to end up being that much better. It also increases party members' attack by a bit, and blah, blah, blah. Come to think of it, I don't even know if I have any feathers or just anything in general from the Hydro set, because I probably got rid of most of them. But yeah, you could use Hydro set. You could end up using Gladiator. There's so many different combinations that you can end up using for her, because basically you're just going to be going all damage and HP, right? So generally speaking, even your bad rolled artifacts aren't going to be that much of a problem. But you could also go for a Maiden set if you really want, because this, of course, is going to end up making it so that you have healing effectiveness increase, which, as we saw, her healing effectiveness is going to end up helping out a lot with certain constellations and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, for your sands, I would recommend either you go for attack, but probably HP, because she's probably going to end up scaling off of HP better than just having raw attack percentage, but that's entirely up to you. The Goblet, obviously, you want to have a Hydro damage as the main stat, which I don't know if I actually have one handy. But like I said, I'm not really super prepared for this character, so hey, whatever. You know, generally speaking, you're going to be going for a Hydra one, and then that means the hat, I mean, you can go for whatever you want for the hat. You could end up using probably an attack percentage rather than crit. Otherwise, if you have a hat that has HP, because I think you can get that on your hat, right? Or there's actually a healing bonus hat, so that would probably end up working very, very well. Or again, yeah, HP, so it is an option right there. So probably just HP. I don't know. I mean, time will tell whether or not that's going to end up being more effective to have more HP versus having more raw attack, but again, it's a little bit too early to tell. This character, like Kokomi, seems like she is very easy to build just because of the fact that you're gonna have so many more options than most other characters do. And in terms of leveling up your talents, that entirely depends how you're using her. If you're using her just for healing, probably leveling up her skill. And if you're using her kind of as a healer slash DPS, you're probably going to be wanting to level up her ult next. And then if you're using her as one of your main characters, obviously you're just leveling absolutely everything on her. But I would say that her normal attack is probably, I mean, I guess that would scale with her healing as well, just because, you know, the more damage you end up doing, the more her healing is, and basically, but I mean, it's all scaled off of her HP. So it doesn't seem like you're going to have to level her up a lot in order to see really, really good benefits from this character. I'm just using Mona as an example. Personally speaking, I'm not too keen on Kokomi. I don't really care for her as much, and just, I don't know. I'm not gonna go for her, but I still think that her character is really interesting and really weird, and I like weird characters. Either way, that's gonna do it for today. Thanks for watching. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel. Have a great day, gamers.